I'm Marcus, Developer Relations at Edge and Node. How is everyone doing today? I am here to start the stream up again because initially we had some streaming issues, and also introduce some ETH Global Con Hackathon winners. We have Francesco, and if I pronounce this correct, is it Till? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, we have Francesco and Till, who both work at Bloctopus, and they teamed up in Cannes and were able to win some prizes. So with that, I wanted to go ahead and bring them on the show, have them share what they built, and then from there, just hang out a little bit and see what they've been up to. So both of you guys, welcome to the Graph Builders Office Hours. Till, Francesco, how you doing today, guys?
Very good. Thanks for having us, Marcus. Very excited to share with everyone. What we've built during the hackathon.
Yeah,
Awesome,
very
awesome.
very hyped to be here, and really, it was my first hackathon as well, so really hyped to share my experience and all we built.
Yeah. I mean, I've been to those hackathons for years. I understand the pressure you guys are under. Let me just check with the chat real quick. Audio, chat, how we doing? Dave, Bitman, how you doing? Harpy, Grantinator, how's the audio sounding? How's the stream? Are we balanced? Are we in? Yes? No? Maybe? I'm Bitman.
I mean,
Okay,
we
Bitman
will
said it was good. Waralato, how you doing? Good to see you in the chat. Okay, so I think we're good with the audio. I think we're good with the stream. Real quick announcement before we get into what you guys are all about and a little bit about your background. If you are watching the live stream right now, that means that a new product was announced at ETHGlobal Con called Hypergraph. And if you hadn't had a chance to check it out, go ahead and check it out. Go ahead and go to thegraph.com and check out Hypergraph. It is a framework. We're actually doing a full stack framework that really has Web3 ethos wired into it from the bottom up. So you're getting cryptographic security, you're having decentralization, you're actually having the ability to have composable data baked in with the framework. Essentially, it encourages and really requires data to be composable by default. And just by having that kind of standardization allows for full stack potential of applications that's really been missing in Web3. I think building apps is amazing in Web3, and it could be better. So I'm really happy to be announcing this. I'm not actually announcing it, I'm sharing that it's already out, but seeing that it's live means a lot to me, and I hope devs listening will be able to try it soon. So that's everything for the announcement, and I'll bring it right back over to the Bloctopus duo. So Francesco, Till, tell me about yourselves. Where are you guys from, and how are you involved in crypto?
Nice. So Francesco and me are both based in London, and we're both, as you said, right, we're working at a startup called Bloctopus. Been kind of going for quite a while. In a sense, like very briefly, kind of what we do at Bloctopus is a kind of orchestration layer for Web3 that allows people to spin up very realistic development environments or really any Web3 infra, right? So you can kind of imagine it a bit like something like Hardhead or Foundry, but not only for chains, right? Because with Hardhead, you can like create a fork of a mainnet of a chain, but then you kind of don't have the other components like indexes or cross-chain protocols, wallets, oracles, whatever, right? So we kind of want to bridge that gap. So a lot of it was kind of co-developed with Ethereum Foundation and then adopted by different teams like OP Labs and Polygon and so on. It's all open source technology, and at its core, really, it is basically like an orchestration engine that allows to kind of spin up these different components. For this hackathon, we kind of had a lot planned, and we'll dive into that in a sec. But obviously, a lot of what we're doing and what we did at the hackathon was also inspired, I guess, by like what we do at Bloctopus.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, great introduction. Yeah. I guess I also am Francesco. I think I joined the company a few months ago and been having a great time. And as I said, Marcus, like developing in Web3 it's fun, but it could be better. And there's like lots of developer tooling that is missing, especially as this environment get more and more complex, as cross-chain environment specifically. We really try to solve this problem by having like easy sandbox development environment for you to test out everything. And in this hackathon, we kind of put together multiple elements. So from Chainlink, we apply specifically for the cross-chain token track, and the graph was really a piece of infrastructure really needed for making all this come to reality. And Hedera was just an example of how a new ecosystem gets integrated across multiple chains. And I think I'll probably leave the stage to Till to kind of give overview of the project first.
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
mean, I'm actually looking at the project right now. Maybe this is a good time for you guys to just kind of like screen share and walk through
Yeah.
the show. Do you guys have the link for your showcase? I'll share that in chat right now. Because essentially that, I think that's a good starting point. What do you guys think?
Yeah, perfect. I usually let me share my screen. So this is the repo that we kind
Perfect.
of submitted, and I think there's also the showcase page, but um, I think the README file here is a lot better because I mean I don't know if maybe for some of you from experience for the hackathon we submitted like I think literally 2 minutes before the deadline. If you watch like the screen recording of the showcase, you'll see the
How's your
timestamp.
guys' blood pressure right now?
Yeah, it was crazy. Obviously, not sleeping the whole night as well, and then trying to like record this demo and kind of looking still like slightly awake. So yeah, it was an experience for sure. So yeah, I think the README file is a lot kind of cleaner in terms of giving an overview of what we built. Um, Maybe like to start with just like talking or explaining a little bit like how we came up with the idea or like how we were thinking about it beforehand. I think the general problem that we were looking at was that kind of interacting with smart contracts or kind of making smart contract calls is often quite painful in Web3 because you kind of need to know exactly what parameters you need to configure for a certain smart contract. You need the ABI and so on, and then you need to write your scripts to kind of make the smart contract calls. Um, and especially we looked at kind of cross-chain tokens because often people have their tokens on so many different chains, and then they need to when they want to add a new chain or they want to change something they need to make a lot of different smart contract calls, and especially for Chainlink for CCT tokens there's so many different smart contracts involved, and there's a lot of things that can go wrong right when you do it. If you do like one parameter wrong it could break your token, right? um, so really the idea was to come up with a solution to first of all like simplify this kind of interaction with the chain, but really then a way to test that all of your configurations and your smart contract calls are successful before you kind of do it on the actual mainnet. And the core technology that we thought of was a way to basically record different on-chain actions or transactions that you do in a fork network, right? So like a fork network that has mainnet data, but that you kind of running locally, for example, and being able to record the different smart contract calls that you make, and then being able to test that everything works, and then actually like replaying them on the actual network, right? So like you could do all the actions and like make sure everything works, and then when you're happy that everything works you can then replay the exact same thing on mainnet or on public testnet or whatever, right? And then you have a lot more kind of clarity that okay everything is actually going to work, the parameters are going to be correct and so on. So yeah, that was kind of the goal, and then obviously it was a lot to do, and we wanted to really get this working with Chainlink, and then showcase it on Hedera because Hedera recently added support for EVM and also for Chainlink. So it was kind of like a nice use case where Hedera doesn't have a lot of tokens yet. So
Yeah.
it would be nice to show how could you deploy your token on Hedera. And then the graph was obviously like the whole kind of engine that powered all of this underneath, right? To like record these on-chain actions and kind of bring them into a format so that we can then replay them on the actual chain. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, with this scope, I love this idea, and this all was happening. Was it a few weeks before you guys were talking about kind of an idea? How did that really come together? And then when you guys sat down to start coding, was that full idea actually materialized by the end, or was there things that you had to leave along the way just because you couldn't get to it?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'll start. But I think Francesco probably has also his kind of story or his experience to share. Um, I think we had this like initial idea. It came from different conversations we had between the two of us. We had actually during the conference in Cannes, we had some conversations with people from Chainlink and so on. So we kind of got an idea of okay, there is a problem there. Um, a lot of the technologies were still quite new to us, right? So I knew about the graph and have done some subgraph stuff before. A lot of what we used was with substreams, so that was like fully new for us. Hedera also we had never looked at before, so that was really new. And yeah, I think it's always funny with these kind of hackathons because it's really up and down like a lot, right? Like I think at the beginning, a lot of motivation, kind of first night, like really pushing and already getting quite a lot done. And then is really that big dip, and the dip got worse and worse. It was like I think on the Saturday during the day where it was going quite slow, and then towards the evening it was, you know, there was a lot of frustration, right? We were really at a point where like we were, okay, you know, deadline is in less than 12 hours, and you know nothing is really working yet, or like this the main part is not working. um it really was like it was like with the graph then where I think it was like actually at midnight or 11 p.m. on like the Saturday, so like, you know, only a couple hours before submission, where we talked a lot with the team from the graph, and I think I even got on a video call with one of your DevOps engineers in the US somewhere, and really like helped us like again like really think about, okay, what is actually not working, what's the part, how we can fix it. um and then yeah, we worked very hard for like these last 8 hours or something, and got like a nice version working. Of course, like so much more to do, like a lot was very hacky, kind of, you know, mocks and so on, but I think the general part we got working. And yeah, I don't know, maybe Francesco, you can share a little bit as well of like how it was for you.
Yeah, yeah, of course. I think we're quite ambitious, and we had didn't ended up actually developing everything we wanted to do. But if you get far enough, people can really see the value or how much you've done. So it really, yeah, a suggestion like you can really be ambitious as long as we have something to show that actually no one else was able to do, or like something very valuable for the development community. That's good enough. That's what we found. And obviously, people would like to see things actually working, and it's not just a nice UI. And but you can always dive deeper into the code and actually show what you've done. And I think, yeah, we were quite lucky before the hackathon during the conference to actually be able to talk with some of the teams before to really understand some of the pain points. So the CCT token idea really came up before the hackathon, talking with people from Chainlink, and they said, like, this is really, we have a token manager, but it's quite limited, and like this is really one of the pain points. So you try to understand how you can contribute to make the developer ecosystem of a specific protocol better and really help there. And during the hackathon, you, I think it's a unique moment because you can talk with the teams and really have a lot of support to really develop your idea further. Um, so yeah, I think we were quite lucky to actually have the idea before, but to be fair, we didn't have most of the stuff spec out. Like when the hackathon started, you still have many question marks, and there is you can really talk with most of the teams that really helped to make sure that we actually knew what we were doing.
Well, I'm really excited to dive into the code and the product and what got over the line. But before I do so, I want to back up a little bit. You guys have experience working cross-chain and thinking cross-chain, correct? With Bloctopus, and this product is also cross-chain. So I'm curious, where do you see the current state of crypto with cross-chain compatibility? Are we at a good place? Are we at a bad place? And what should we be doing better, at least as in terms of the entire crypto industry, to essentially give cross-chain compatibility a better chance at really getting into consumers' hands? Right now, I feel like we're in kind of a beginning stage of cross-chain compatibility. It's relatively early, which is exciting, and also I'd prefer it to be today. So where do you guys see cross-chain compatibility in the scope of the industry right now?
Maybe Francesco, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course. I think right now the space gets like more and more fragmented, and we don't think anymore in just one paradigm, one chain, and we really think more high level. And like we should really stop thinking about the chain as the execution layer itself. We should start thinking about a more composable system. For example, in Chainlink, there's this concept of a workflow. So a workflow is just defining some set of actions, and the actual blockchain underneath is just infrastructure. So if you make a metaphor, right now when you drink from the sink, you don't really think about all the infrastructure behind that purifies the water and all the different pieces that are behind. So I really think there is a new paradigm in which like all this complexity gets kind of abstracted away from the users, and there is a big opportunity to build developer tooling on these new multi-chain environments. And that's also where us a Bloctopus come through, because like Tenderly and Ardot and Foundry are more specific on smart contract development on one chain, but really what we're trying to do is create this easily composable environment for you to spin up, because you're really gonna use multiple components and workflow across those, and we try to make it easier. And this is just an example, and I think it will get more and more complex, and we see it for many companies building cross-chain now. So like account abstraction, and yeah, generally the UX experience now, intent-based execution is kind of the next level for UX in cross-chain environment. And we see a lot of cross-chain messaging solution that kind of help you abstracting away all this stuff. So yeah, we really see the space evolving. It's hard to see where it's going, but I think maybe all the things that we are used now, all this complexity will be abstracted away over time, and we just think differently in the future.
Yeah, I sincerely hope so. Are there any standards that you're seeing used in teams that are aiming for cross-chain compatibility that you're seeing relatively consistent? I'm curious if there's a standard of some type of data structure, some type of something that's standardization. Is there beginnings of any standardization in this space, or is there still people are potentially reinventing the wheel many times? Is there any type of consensus beginning?
I think, yeah, it's an interesting question, because I think what I've noticed is like, there's constantly people trying to build like kind of standards or abstraction layers on top of each other, right? Like you kind of have like a lot of chains, and people are trying to build like chain abstraction things. Now there's so many different, cross-chain protocols that exist. So people like, talked to a couple teams before that do kind of abstraction on top of cross-chain protocols and so on. But you can even imagine them people building again on top of that. And I think it's really difficult, because I think potentially we need to go away from the idea of like, oh, we want this like one unified layer for everything, right? Like, because it's what we initially thought with chains, right? We thought, okay, there might be like one winner for one chain that everyone is going to use, but I think realistically that's not going to happen, right? We're going to have a lot of different chains that exist together, and it's probably the same with cross-chain protocols as well.
Yeah.
But definitely, like there needs to be a way for people like to use it in an easier way, right? Because there's so many different ones. It's even a hard decision of like which ones should you use, right? Which ones have the best security, performance, what so on. And then learning all of these different protocols also is not easy, right?
I mean, it's reminding me of it's still ongoing race for L2 supremacy,
Yeah.
where everyone was like, we are going to build the ultimate L2 that does everything for everybody. And there's a few out there that are getting pretty close to doing that. But for the most part, it is very much an L2 landscape of specialization right now. And so there's these amazing L2s out there that can do a lot of things. But when you have an L2 that's specializing, they're just going to be better at some things. And it feels like that with compatibility right now, which is interesting because now we're moving up the stack. We've got security with L1s. We've actually got real speed with L2s, and now L3s, L4s. I mean, you got all these different layers now. And then the composability feels like that next layer, where now we're trying to tie it all together, and it's going to be a little bit of a race where there's going to be some generalists and some specialists. And it's happening again, which is a good place for you guys to be in Bloctopus.
Yeah, absolutely.
I did have like a controversial tweet that I posted some time ago, and it just said like, there is no next Solana, and the future isn't about faster chains, but it's about making chains invisible. And basically, like, you just have an intent, an outcome, and you say the execution. So it's not just scalability alone doesn't win. It's more like coordination and cross-chain interop does. So basically, what you just said. And right now it's still very fragmented, but yeah, we're seeing some new like standards. I think Axelar has like a cross-chain token standards. they're all kind of similar, but yeah, we are kind of starting to see this new coordination layer arrive. I think the intent-based execution is also an interesting concept.
Cool, cool. Well, I think that's enough like high to middle level kind of questions. You guys want to go into what you submitted and where the graph fits, where Chainlink fits. Oh, also, if anyone's curious, the prizes they got, you guys got first, second. I'm trying to remember the prizes. Let me
I
look
think
it
we
up
got
right now.
three first. Actually, it was quite surprising. Like, I mean, there's different categories, right? But I think within those categories, we got the first prizes from Chainlink, the Graph, and Hedera.
Yep, I'm looking at the prizes right now. Yeah, you guys did very well.
We were so surprised. We was expecting we were expecting maybe the graph, because like we did talk a lot with the team and they said they were quite like surprised what we did, but we're not expecting all the others, and that was a quite good surprise, to be fair.
Yeah,
Well,
and actually,
I think with that all being said, and the pedigree you guys have and the winning track, let's dive into the code. How about that? Yeah.
that's it. Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, so here's like a little like diagram, right, to give an overview of the different components. So it started kind of with like, first what we need is like a forked network or forked networks, right? So like networks that have mainnet data. So what we did first there was like create a forked network of Hedera and then also Ethereum. So that was already like a big challenge in itself. Kind of like for Hedera, we had to run our own node, and then because they had performance issues on the RPC, they had to run their own node and then pull in kind of the data into our networks. And then kind of the main part, there's an orchestrator that kind of spins all of these different things up. But really then the core thing is the indexer, the web app, and the replayer, right? So the indexer is all done fully with the graph. The components there is actually a Firehose stream to kind of get all the data from these fork networks. Because and actually, yeah, we'll dive deeper into it, but that was quite a big challenge.
Yeah, let's start. Let's at most go to middle depth. We're not going to get super low level, but yeah, let's start high to medium and hang out there. And we do also want to. I'm curious what the product running looks like too. Of course.
Yeah, we'll exactly. We'll share that. So we'll have the web app. Francesca will show that in a second. And then the replay is kind of that part that I said earlier, right? That kind of then can make those transactions on the actual network. But yeah, let's start with the web app. See kind of what it looks like from the UI of like how you can manage the tokens, record them, and so on. Yeah, I'll let Francesca share screen.
Of course. Here we go. So this specific UI, as we said, we wanted to focus on.
Real quick, make the screen a little bit bigger.
yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, well, I guess as big as the screen can manage, because people might be watching on mobile.
Yeah, is this good or more? Nice, all good. Yeah, basically we're like trying to focus on a complex transaction across multiple chains. You can see here these two chains are actually fork networks. So they are like Ethereum, sorry, it's a small screen again. This is an Ethereum fork network with Ethereum data and an Arbitrum network. And we build this UI that do this transaction on this chain, and we have this record button. So basically when we start the recording, we select specifically an address that we want to record all the actions, in this case, mostly transaction from, and underneath the indexer would basically filter through the address and build a list of all the actions that have been done on these multiple networks. So it will monitor each network and start like filtering the transaction. And in this specific case, what we wanted to replay and record is the CCT token deployment. And these are just specific configuration of the token that I won't bore you too much and how they work. But basically, they do require a lot of different like transactions that could go wrong, and especially this scales up pretty quickly. Here we selected only 2 networks, but for tokens that are deployed across 20 networks, the number of transactions scales up exponentially, because here you need to make sure that one chain is connected to all the combination of all the other possible chain. Because, for example, for Hedera, let's say they have their token deployed on 20 chains all connected. Now we wanted to add to Hedera, and we need to add 20 connections for each one of them. And if there is 2 networks, there's going to be 20 squared and even more. So there's like lots of different cross configuration transactions. And yeah, well, basically what we're doing here is like submitting the transaction, we're recording, and it takes a while. Obviously, there's a few transactions, but at the end, what we're gonna see is a declarative view of all the actions, basically just a YAML file that defines all the information of these transactions so that we can then easily take this and replay on any other network. So in this case, like this is a fork of Ethereum, this is a fork of Arbitrum, we can replay exactly the same transactions on the actual network. And this recording could be done not just for this CCT token specifically, but could be done for any transaction. So we actually have an API as well. We build an API, so you can just call start recording and do any specific action that then you want to replay. And even there's different use cases. One could be like a use case like this for like complex configuration, or what could be even just like test that a transaction actually executes and does what it's supposed to do. Like in production use cases, you want to make sure that it's actually calling the right smart contract and it's not failing. Maybe it's not like actually gonna steal all your money. You can see the transaction executed correctly on the sandbox environment, and you see a tick, and then you can actually replay on mainnet to make sure that everything is secure. So now we almost finished. I'm gonna show you in a second where we stop the recording, and then I can actually pass it to Teal to actually show the indexer part. That I think that's the most interesting part that actually watches this transaction that we can then replay. So as I said, here is only one configuration, but with multiple chains it would be more complex.
And that config is just a YAML file that you adapt as needed, depending on how many chains you want to deploy, 1 chain or 100 chains. You just simply you just extend it as you need.
Yeah. So basically, when we start the recording, we selected a number of networks, and here we see is basically a mapping of the network ID and the actual transaction data. So here we can say that it recorded a transaction, there's a contract creation, and all the data that we need to replay this transaction. There's the chain, the token creation, then there is the pool creation, and then we have like an actual contract call to set up the pool to be connected to the token, and so on. So if you select multiple network, you can have this mapping, for example. Then if you go down, there is another network entry here. Yeah, here we go. And this is a network ID specifically. It could be a chain ID. And here in our forked environment, this corresponds to this network that we can see the type, and we could potentially automatically detect, oh, these are Ethereum types. So if you want to replay, you go automatically replay on Ethereum, or you can choose your own chain to replay to.
That's really fun. I'm already like, okay, I want to see it in this way and that way, but this is a hackathon project already. This is super impressive just to have this level of octopus, if you will, Bloctopus. I see where the branding comes in here. How much of this is operational in some sense of the word with your current product, and is this different? I'm seeing there's some alignment. I'm curious where there's overlap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think like there's still we already worked quite a lot more on this after the hackathon as well. I think there's still a lot more to do. So I think there's still some issues with kind of the indexing part of like getting it into that exact perfect format. So like there's still, I think from what you saw now, there's still like slightly parts that are mocked because we know exactly what the transactions are going to be, right? We wanted really, as Francesca said, right, we want it to be very general, and we also want to make it a lot more user friendly, right? Like during the hackathon, we had really these big ambitions, right? We wanted them to bring in like you could bring in some AI, or you could bring in even some automated ways to like look up, for example, contracts on the Explorer to like decode different parameters and so on, make it more human readable to see, okay, what actually is happening in this transaction, so that people can then say, okay, actually, I want to configure it in this way and so on, right? So
I've been at that AI decision-making moment multiple times, and every time I'm like, oh, you just plug it in.
Yeah.
And like, and then no.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's so much more to do.
It'll be a week at minimum.
Yeah. No, exactly. But yeah, I think in terms of like integrating it into like Bloctopus products and so on, really the goal is for anyone to be able to very easily like create like, of course there's like record and replay functionality, but then even from a graph perspective, like from an indexer perspective, being able to like very easily like deploy multi-chain indexes very quickly, right? So because what the part that we built here that was quite unique was like a very simple way to like deploy substreams and subgraphs across a lot of different chains. And then what we're working on right now is then also turning that into one unified kind of GraphQL API, right? Like what we really wanted to do, and we don't have that part yet, would be like that you have like, you know, one GraphQL endpoint and you can really like query about different networks, right? You can say, give me all the transactions in this time frame on these 5 networks, for example, right? So there's a lot more to do there, but that's kind of where we want to go.
Okay, well, very, very cool. The prizes you won. Let's go into that kind of. I know you won 3 prizes. Let's go into each 3 and what part of your build applies to those prizes, and kind of extract for other viewers that might be watching, that might be, you know, going to ETHGlobal New York, which I'll be at, and you guys will be at. How did you guys hone in on these prizes and show the part of the stack that really won you those prizes?
Yeah, I guess I can finish up this part, this specific for CCIP, and then we can talk about more specific the graph and Edera part.
Sure.
So for CCIP, mostly this UI was very specific because of the cross-chain token. And actually, I'm going to share the screen again. We did go slightly further as well. So we actually also build more utilities to use the token that you deployed. So once you deploy the token, you can see my token is here, and we build a CCIP UI that you actually can test the token. And this is where we said some part of our platform, like
I was literally thinking about the routing options and being able to actually take a look at those, and I didn't even want to bring it up because like with the hackathon project, you guys, but I see available lanes. I see that you guys are doing more config here, which that's what I was curious about. So you're already ahead of me. That's great.
Yeah. So basically, obviously, in the hackathon, this wasn't part of our platform at all. We basically just used the forking and these packages but we didn't put it as part of our platform. Now you can see it's fully integrated on our platform, and we have the fork network, but we also have our deployment of TCP. So this is really the differentiation of Bloctopus, is that we also have these cross-chain elements that act exactly, are very realistic, is exactly a DON environment that takes a message and relays the message. So it is exactly a CCIP clone itself, and you can actually test the full flow for CCIP transactions. So anyone building cross-chain, they can really do the recording as well of these cross-chain transactions. So now I can actually go and take my token, and I can do a cross-chain transaction, a test environment, and record that on a test environment. So if I am someone building on top of CCIP, I would find this very useful because it's very realistic. It's actually doing the same thing that is doing in mainnet, but the CCIP is our deployment, and it's very easy to spin up. It's like one click, and you spin up the fork network as a package, and one click you spin up CCIP to connect the two. So this was part of the CCIP
Really nice.
track. We actually built mostly the UI. We didn't have everything working. We built this on the mainnet, and then after we kind of put everything together on our platform in terms of the fork environment, our CCIP version. So the UI was really more the part that we built, and this is using the part of the SDK of Chainlink. But
would you guys recommend that other teams out there just go join a hackathon and build a feature of their actual product and just push it right through and that feels very efficient, not only with your time and energy, but also you're getting returns on it too. That's a brilliant idea. If you're a team out there looking to go through a hackathon, think of a feature that you want to build in 2.5 days, maybe 3 days, and then go ahead and win some prize money along the way.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think the hackathon is also just a way to like experiment like a bit, right? Because like, of course, like this, like it's not, we wouldn't go and like build like an exact feature that like we directly build into our platform. Like it is supposed to be like a little bit more ambitious and kind of like a very new thing, right? So that's the idea. Like you can kind of be a bit experimental, like try out like a new technology that you haven't maybe looked at before. But then it's crazy what you can do actually in this kind of short amount of time, right? Because you're so focused on just doing that.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting bleeding edge tech. A lot of these different sponsors are coming out with new chains, new features, and they're trying to get you to use them. They're paying you to say, hey, come on, use our new features, our new XYZ, and that's only going to help any developer who's in this industry. I don't care how seasoned you are, to really improve your awareness. This industry changes every week, and it's really cool that you guys both went out together and did this. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about the graph and where that's plugged in. And then you got the Chainlink CCIP, you've got the graph, and then there's the Hedera one.
Yeah. So maybe, yeah, just very briefly, because I think the Hedera one is we can kind of talk about quite quickly, and then we'll do the graph part. Um, so Hedera, I think I mentioned briefly at the beginning. Hedera recently added like an EVM layer to that chain, right? Hedera is not even a blockchain actually technically, but then now they have like an EVM part where people can use Solidity and so on to develop their smart contracts. And because of that, they also recently got kind of full support for Chainlink, right? So now people can kind of use Chainlink between Ethereum and Hedera to bridge tokens and so on. So really the idea here was that, okay, because Hedera doesn't have a lot of CCT tokens, Chainlink tokens yet, right? Like this would be a great kind of showcase of showing people how, if they have an existing one or a new token, how they would kind of, deploy it on Hedera and then test, okay, everything works before they actually do it on the public testnet or mainnet, right? So in the demo and when we did it in the hackathon, we forked the public testnet of Hedera. We kind of showed it in our simulated environment, and then we actually did the actual deployments on the public testnet to show, okay, now we have the CCT token on the public testnet, and now we can even send it between Sepolia or Ethereum mainnet, whatever. Send the token, and that's where we had the UI as well to like, okay, kind of select Hedera, deploy the tokens there, and then test it and so on.
Yeah, and I think they saw the value because we're probably the first people ever forking. I mean, they just released it the week before, to be fair, so it's quite unfair. But to fork their network, we actually also run a block explorer on top of their network. Even just running a node, like for them, they were quite excited about like people building on top of it there. So it was, to be honest, quite an easy win for both of the parties because it was quite a new ecosystem.
Yeah, I'm impressed with what you guys are doing. Let's dive into the graph portion. And I think it's a good place to go through where we're plugging into, and then from there, I feel like this was a great time hanging out. What do you guys say?
Awesome. Yeah, perfect.
Perfect.
Yeah, so like the graph really comes into from what you saw from Francesco's screen, right? That the record feature and then turning kind of the transactions into that format. So let me share my screen and I'll stay as high level as I can. But basically, really like the unique part about what we built is like a way to kind of run subgraphs on top of substreams, first of all, right? So that was something actually that was apparently deprecated a bit from the graph, so there's no documentation.
Literally a few weeks ago. So yeah, you guys just missed it.
So that was the hard part actually. Like we had to really go very deep into the code base to still figure out how can we do it, because the goal really was a way to, get this multi-chain kind of GraphQL API where we can see all the transactions. So we needed the subgraph part, but we also needed the substreams part because we wanted to basically be able to get all these different transactions directly from these fork networks. So the first challenge I think was around running substreams with these fork networks, because when you think about fork networks, they're not actually usually proper chains, or like in our case they are, like we're running like a REST client from Ethereum to do this. But the issue is that substreams, as it is normally when running it kind of with a node, it usually only supports, I think, Geth node, or maybe another one is maybe Geth and Aragon, but it didn't support this. So we had to build like a custom way, like with RPC polling, right, where it kind of like queries the RPC to get all the data. So that was where it uses Firehose, and then that data gets consumed by the substream, right? So the substream then kind of does some of the mapping to take out these transactions, classify them. If you saw it maybe on Francesco's screen, like it classified the transactions into contract creation, smart contract call, and so on. So it would do those parts. And then the subgraph obviously turns it into like a sub GraphQL API.
Cool.
So the way this kind of looks like is quite easy, that you just have to pass in like one configuration file where you basically specify the forked environment. So in this case, this is the RPC of the forked network, this is Arbitrum, this is Ethereum, bunch of other kind of parameters. And what it does is when you spin it up, it will basically spin up these different components very quickly, right? So we have, as I mentioned, we have the Firehose part. So we have a Firehose part for Arbitrum and for Ethereum. And that's the one that kind of gets the data directly from the nodes. Then we have like a full kind of graph node deployment with IPFS and Postgres database in the background. And this is the part that actually then manages the substreams and the subgraphs as well. So if we look at like the logs, for example, of the node, you'll see here kind of that it's ingesting the blogs. That's from the substreams part, and it's then transforming them into kind of the format that we want it to be in. And really one of the unique parts is like that all you have to do is basically specify the different chains. Like we could add another chain here, and it would automatically then spin up these substreams and Firehose connections to all of these chains automatically, right? So it makes it a lot easier also for people to even deploy their substreams against like certain chains.
That's a really efficient build. I really like that. It's like a trigger. You just drop it and boom. That's really nice. What is your guys' background a little bit with the graph, with building with the graph technology? What's that process been like?
Yeah, I think, I'm trying to think back, like subgraphs was always like something that was quite clear to me, or I looked into a lot before. I think at Bloctopus, for example, because we have like these forked environments, and we wanted to showcase some kind of use cases with Uniswap, for example. So we actually like added like subgraphs for Uniswap into our environments before, so that people can kind of actually have like a nice Uniswap UI where you can kind of test all the different transactions with Uniswap or swaps of Uniswap in a forked environment. And for that, we kind of use subgraphs as well to get the quotes faster and kind of get different data about Uniswap. And that's a while ago, and I think that's where I kind of basic a good understanding of what the graph node does and how the graph works, or subgraphs work. But then substreams, I knew what the use case was, but I never actually looked into how does actually substreams work, and then also the Firehose part was very new. So it was great for this hackathon actually to dive into that and learn about that as well.
Yeah. What about you, Francesco?
Yeah, I mean, generally, I think an indexer is such a crucial piece of infrastructure, especially in a development environment. As if you ever gonna have a UI and your like chain environment, an indexer usually is always there for these use cases. So for us building this realistic development environment, we were really already kind of comfortable about spinning up an indexer easily on top of our fork network. And again, I think that's part of the thesis of this cross-chain environment. Many people now test in production because there is not enough tooling. And if you're a developer, you know how rounded it is. Like everyone has a developer environment, and that should be the same for blockchain. And an indexer is always there. So yeah, as I said, the subgraph part we knew, and this part is kind of new, to be fair, to me as well. I think Till was the first one that spent more time on it.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with your guys' creativity to essentially take a deprecated feature and plug it back in. That's a new one. I've seen a lot of interesting projects in a hackathon, but to see that's great. And then to really across the board be using some really powerful concepts. That was one thing that I looked over your project. Sometimes you see projects that have super powerful concepts, and it's difficult to get across the line just because they're just beefy protocols. I mean, using Chainlink, CCIP, that's a big one. The graph, subgraphs, and substreams, that's a big one. And then Hedera too. I mean, there's some complex stuff. And the fact that you guys are able to push through this is really, really impressive. So, yeah, guys, Do you have anything else to add? Do you have anything else that you'd like to share with developers out there about either the hackathon process, what you guys are doing, any advice, anything that you'd like them to take a look at? This is your time. I'll give you the last few minutes here for whatever you guys would like to say.
I mean, I think the main thing really for us is like all of this is open source, right? Like I think I would really encourage everyone to like take a look at this. We really like kind of value like contributions to this as well because as I said at the beginning, right, it's like we've got a lot done, but also there's so much more that can be done or like to improve this. And really the goal here is like for people to make it easier to use, substream, subgraphs, like especially on multi-chain environments. Um, so yeah, like I think we already shared some of the links, and yeah, it would be
Yeah.
great like, if people kind of actually looked at it and tried it out themselves. And then any contributions would be amazing.
Awesome. Yeah, I shared the links in chat too, and I'll share that also in the Twitter post too to make sure people know where to go. Francesco, any thoughts?
Yeah, just to piggyback on what Teal said, yeah, all our tech is open source. We use Kurtosis, but it's basically like a Docker Compose for Web3, and like we think really the developer tooling is missing out there. So like if you take part of this hackathon, there's a lot of different opportunity to really make the experience of developing on top of this protocol better. And we as Bloctopus, we embrace Kurtosis as an open marketplace. Anyone can build their own Kurtosis package, and they're very composable. So we build many packages for spinning up like 10 different EVMs, Solana, the graph on top of it, and it's a very composable part. So if you are building a protocol, especially like Russian protocol, and you're struggling with Docker Compose, wherever your local dev environment is, you can really like be part of this open source community and like build your own packet that will you can use internally, but then all the community, maybe also all the protocols that are building on top of you would use, and really make it easier to build in general, make it like a more developer friendly environment, because as now it's very fragmented, everyone has their own internal way to spin out things, and we're really looking for building that kind of Docker Compose or like like composable environment for building on top of this protocol, or even just spinning up infra long term. Like this could become the way you can run infrastructure also on production, and is more standardized and easy to do.
I really appreciate that yearning for standardization. I have seen it time and time again where there's echoes of standardization as an evolution is occurring. Right now, I feel like, especially for cross-chain compatibility, there's an evolution, and as always, crypto's always evolving. So a little bit of standardization never hurt. So Till, Francesco, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your energy. You guys will be at ETHGlobal San Francisco, not San Francisco, New York, correct?
Yeah, we'll be there.
Okay, so I will see you guys there. Looking forward to seeing you guys there, meeting you guys in person, and from there we'll keep on building. So everyone out there in the audience, thank you so much for joining. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. There's going to be another Builders Office Hours tomorrow. So if you guys are available out there as viewers to watch again, 5 p.m. UTC, come on out. There's going to be more builders sharing what they are building. All right, guys. Till, Bloctopus, go ahead and keep your tab open right now. I'm going to close the stream, and then from there, we're done for the day. All right, guys. So keep your tab open. Take care, viewers. Have a good one.
Bye.
All right.